Nerdy Girl Reviews is back, and we are reviewing The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, Season 4. At the time of this recording, we are at episode 5, so I'll be reviewing those 5 small episodes. Well, they weren't small, but we'll get into that. And stay tuned for some commentary. May the Lord open under his eye. How creepy! Anyway, stay tuned. Okay, y'all. So before we get into these last 5 episodes, which I'm going to try to do a quick recap, just in case, by small chance, anybody who follows me is not privy to The Handmaid's Tale like I was, because Lord knows I came late to the game, but I'm up to date. I'm going to do a really quick synopsis. The Handmaid's Tale, acclaimed dystopian novel by Canadian author Margaret Atwood, published in 1985. Okay, 1985, and it is so relevant to contemporary issues and the climate change that we're in, political climate change. But anyway, the book, set in New England in the near future, posits a Christian fundamentalist theocratic regime in the former United States that arose as a response to a fertility crisis. Again, always pushing their religion agenda to get what they want. What other brief information? A climate change. Oh, so where the story takes place is in Gilead, some made-up spot that they all decided that it was a good idea, as climate change and exposure to toxic chemicals have caused most of the U.S. population to become infertile. A woman's fertility becomes her most important trait in an effort to save Gilead's population from extinction. In Gilead, all women are prohibited from consuming any media, including reading. So basically, women are just... I'm sorry, but they are just reduced to being cattle in this series. The well-to-do women and, co-conspirators of this nightmare of a reality, those who suffer from infertility, whoever basically was chastised and put into this scarlet letter scenario, adulterers and women who were just basically leading their normal lives with every human right that a woman is allotted in this country, is reduced to being cattle. You are not to have emotions, you are not to have any feelings, you are allowed to be violated, assaulted, with the purpose of breeding. And that's basically it. And whether you like it or not, you are either put up against this horrible scenario or death. And women who are either past their prime, and if you were a professional, you were reduced to just being a cook. They were called Marthas. And if you were a handmaid, you were assigned a home, and then you became of that person's property. And so, much like cattle, all that needed was the branding. But in a way, they are branded. What am I saying? Because they're tagged like cattle in the ear with the most excruciating, horrible scenes in the first few seasons, so they are easily tracked and traced. Horrible, horrible, horrible. So you were to become of that household. So at the very beginning, we have our main protagonist, June Osborne, played by Elizabeth Moss, and I love Elizabeth Moss. I've followed her career since Girl Interrupted. I think she's incredibly talented. She went off to do Mad Men, and she did. I remember her doing some Broadway shows for a while before she transitioned into this series, and the girl is multi-talented. I've been a fan for years, and the fact that she's taken on this excruciatingly painful series, but I give her credit that she has been able to move on to a directorial kind of position for this series, so she has been able to kind of branch out in her creative wings, if I can say. But the subject matter is so heavy. I believe that this series started around the time that Trump went into office, and I thank the Lord and Jesus that I did not watch this show during that administration, because I would have been crying with every single episode, and I do, and I still find myself emotional. But just the fact that the fact that the scary thing is that art was literally imitating life, and that the way that this country was being led, it was zeroing in on that, and that's a very, very scary reality. And so I don't think I could have honestly stomached watching this show during the administration. Now that there seems to be, a compassionate leader in office, then now I can kind of see it for the art that it is, but it was just too close to home. So I'll say that. But June is basically our Joan of Arc, and she's a fighter, and it withstands so much. I mean, it is brutal. This series is incredibly brutal, and it is terribly taxing on women in particular. You honestly begin to loathe the opposite sex, and you're just like, but in a way, from what I gather, the novelist, she took from historical past of how women have always been, treated more or less like a second class citizen, no rights. We're talking about suffrage, and these are instances in history that did happen and occur to women. And let's not even get into the subject matter of women of color. So, but there are instances that we see on how there is a difference in between your common Caucasian woman and a woman of color. Her friend, for instance, Maura, if she looks familiar, of course she's from the popular Netflix series Orange is the New Black, and I loved her character on that show too. But the kinship, the camaraderie that exists between these women also, and the ups and downs, just the fact that they fight so hard just to find their freedom, and that Moore is able to escape, and the fact that June accepts the fact that she's like, I'm gonna let my friend go because I'll find some way that I can get out of here, this brutal reality, and she allows for her friend to escape. June had her life prior to this horrible sense of reality, but what I guess is her push and her drive to keep going is the fact that she's still striving to reclaim her daughter. Her daughter also has been ripped from her grasp, and I can't imagine, I mean, just being a mother and bringing a child into this world and being ripped from you. But again, these are all instances based on history wrapped up in fiction. The first 5 episodes for this season, incredible. Remember, we left off on a cliffhanger on season 3, where she's so brave, and how she kind of stuck her neck out there knowing that she could have easily been killed, and she helps Martha's in particular to escape with 86 children to Canada and seek asylum. And again, very much similar to what we've seen in recent years, how some women put themselves in that position just for a better life, so that their children can seek a better life and better opportunities, how gut-wrenching that felt. Her husband Luke is such a cutie. Remember Luke from Looking? Again, he's also a multi-talented actor. But the fact that he's at that plane in the first few episodes, and he's at that plane once he sees those children arrive, and he's like, I have to. If she's not on that plane, then at least I'll see my child, and it doesn't happen. It's so heartbreaking, and it just like it just rips you in half because you're like, how much more can this couple endure? And even her friend too, who's still striving to just make sure that she just finally breaks free of it. And then you see a sense of resentment as well, that it's like, why doesn't she try her best to just escape? But to her credit, she got those children free, and the people that made her life a living hell, the unscrupulous Serena Joy, played by Yvonne Strahovski, again, don't crucify me, and Commander Waterford, played by Joseph Fiennes. I mean, what didn't that couple do? They did everything to just make her life impossible, to the point where I'm sure she wanted to give up. And the fact that they have been extradited to Canada and now finally seeing some consequences, I am praying by the end of this season that June will get her revenge. Funny thing is that, though, I will say about Commander Lawrence, played by Bradley Whitford, tell me he just doesn't have that face. I'm familiar with his work also, and I remember the first movie that sticks out, because, I mean, I don't know, I think he's of that decade. He's definitely of the 80s and the 90s, and, you know, playing those frat, you know, roles, frat boy roles and stuff. He basically embodies that asshole kind of a role. The first role that comes into my head when I think about him is Adventures of Babysitting. Oh my god, with Elizabeth Shue. He just embodies that face, and I don't think he means to. There's just some people who have that face. You know, it's just like that face is like, oh, he's gonna be a dick. So there's that. Don't mind my cursing. And then the follow up. I hadn't seen him in a number of years, and I'm sure he had been doing other roles, but the only other role that pops into my head is Get Out, and it's just like that convincing asshole. And I have to say, for the last two seasons, he really walks that fine line of like, is he trying to help? Is he trying to sink her? Is he trying to convince her to just commit suicide? I'm not 100% sure what it is. Like, you don't know if he's a good or a bad guy. Just because he was able, just because there was a moment of him, I believe there's a sense of compassion, and I don't know necessarily if it was his guilt or for whatever reason he's able to get of Glenn to escape, played by Alex Bleedle from Gilmore Girls. I remember seeing. I wasn't like, you know, a fan of the show, but I remember her being specifically of that particular show. But the fact that he's able to get her to escape, and also June was close to escaping, but hands over the baby that she was able to conceive with Nick, who was also kind of taken on the role of love interest, because she's not near her husband. She had to survive somehow, and she breeds and has Nick's baby, and is able to kind of give her child very much like a Moses kind of situation, and she's able to escape. We don't know if now Commander Lawrence is really on her side, is really on the side of the women, because remember, he helped create this nightmare of a reality. So we don't know. And though we go through those motions of compassion because we realize that his wife had mental issues, this particular reality depressed her and robbed her of any kind of joy. I guess that's also what bleeds into, well, maybe he's not so bad, but we don't know. We still don't know. Also, going into the last few episodes, we have our hideous Aunt Lydia, and I can't, I've said this in other comments, I think on Facebook or Instagram, that it's like, kudos to her, because just the fact she's another one that walks that fine line of like, God, she's loathsome and she's incredibly abusive, but somehow she still has like this motherly kind of I don't know, thing about her character that you don't know. You don't know. Is it compassion? Is it hate? Why is she compelled to do this? Why is she so gun ho on torturing all these women? Was her actual life before Gilead, before this reality, that bad? Or if she that resentful towards life that she just felt compelled to torture these women? But then there are instances of humanity, because when June is captured, um, you know, to pay her the price of escaping with those handmaids, um, she and June is basically waterboarded and tortured. She loses it. Like, she's like, you know, stitching to kind of calm her nerves, but I guess it didn't settle right with her. So there are those mom instincts in her, which you again, so you don't know if necessarily like, do I 100% hate her? And again, kudos to the actress and Jod. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but she is multifaceted when it comes to this character, because you just don't know whether to hate her or love her or in between. So there's that. The first episode, we, you know, going into this season, and we do see that the handmaids escape and they end up on some kind of property as they title as Mayday. And then we stumble across this particular wife, who you feel sorry for, because you could tell that she's a very young lady, and she's in this messed up situation where she has to play wife to this much older man that honestly could be her grandfather, and she is to breed and she is to have a child with him. So she is seeking revenge, and when June gets onto this property, she just needs to survive. She's just trying to survive with her girls, but somehow she's able to kind of turn her, and they do form some kind of camaraderie in this chaotic environment, but nonetheless they are captured. uh, Poor June, she's tortured to death, and then the last coup de grace here is them bringing in her kid. And again, if any woman is pitted up against that scenario, you would crumble. This is your child, this is your baby, and because of the separation, you can even see that the child is scared. I mean, it would break any woman's heart, you know? So she gives in, she gives it up, she tells Aunt Lydia where all of the handmaids are. They're captured. There are really some excruciating scenes to watch. And then we see that yet they still try to escape, and they are successful, but unfortunately of our characters, our beloved characters from the first 3 seasons, they die. They're sacrificed, and the only people who are left are now June and of Warren, which is Madeline, played by Madeline Brewer, the girl with the badge. And I love her. She's so kooky. And again, I think the actress does a brilliant job with that as well. You feel compassion for this particular character, and she's easily led, but I think it's something about, you know, her independence was stripped from her, so all she has is June. And they go through all types of trials and tribulations. They make it to Chicago. They have to get into this big tank of milk just to like smuggle themselves in. And the fact that they're met up with other people of the resistance, but in a way they have to revert back to what they were already dealing with in Gilead, June loses it. And of Warren is able to kind of like finagle her way. She's like, look, you know, I'm not gonna lose my head, or we're not gonna try to struggle just to feed ourselves. We're already here. She sacrifices herself like a sacrificial lamb, and they're able to stay. But June's not content, and she wants to get out of there. So she hatches somehow to get out of there. She wants of Warren to come with her, but she's like, no, I'm good. I'm solid. Maybe I could be a mom again, and I may have to live like a fugitive, but whatever. And then some form of convincing, and maybe I think some form of I forget how to say the word, some form of Stockholm syndrome develops, that she can't necessarily stay away from June. And they lead off to another place trying to seek aid, Mayday, and then they realize that something's gone wrong, and a bunch of bombing goes off, very much similar to what we're kind of seeing in Palestine. But again, I'm not going to politicize this channel. And we are left, the cliffhanger here is that finally Mora comes in as part of the rescue team and sees June. And it's the most heartbreaking scene because they haven't seen each other since Mora escaped. And again, I am praying that June is able to seek some form of justice. Having that hideous couple as well being held in custody. I believe in the trailer we kind of see that she does confront Serena. And now we'll see, because now Serena's pregnant of her own. She couldn't get pregnant before, and now she is expecting a child. So we'll see how this